Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. Recently, I've been doing segments with the Adam Thompson Show, and recently was on a panel with our next guest. We're supposed to be kind of debating, but he chooses people that are in large agreement, probably on about 80%. Of the issues, as we are largely in agreement with the host. But it's a lot of fun anyway, and where we differ, because we're all people of principle, there's always some I guess you could say, passionate discussion. Alex Swoyer was recently on there with me, talked about a lot of different things. How many times have you been on Adam's show, Alex?
Well, that was my first time, and I'm glad it was enjoyable, and I got to meet you, and we had a lively discussion. So I know we're planning on being back later this month. So. Yeah,
I think the actual plan is to have us on monthly, is the impression I got from their producer, which would be awesome. I would love to do that. And
yeah, definitely. The conversation was great. Like you said, we talked about an array of topics.
We really did. And by the way, your background, you're with Breitbart. You are a writer for Breitbart.com.
That is correct. I cover Capitol Hill, but obviously now things are gearing up in terms of politics on the campaign trail. So I just got back from Wisconsin yesterday, and I head to Iowa tomorrow. Was in South Carolina before that. So I'm covering all of your, 100 GOP candidates.
Yes. You had to be as shocked as I was on Monday when you saw what Reuters was reporting as far as a national poll in which guys like Scott Walker, whom I personally like, I kind of gravitate towards, went from around 15% in April to less than 6% this month. And meanwhile, Donald Trump has catapulted to being one of only two candidates in double digits. You had to be as shocked as I was.
Yeah, I thought when I attended Trump's presidential announcement in New York, I had a feeling that he was going to skyrocket. I don't know if this is a timely thing, of course, with him being in the media so much, but I think a lot of Americans are just angry at politicians in general. It doesn't matter if it's a Republican or a Democrat. So someone like Donald Trump, who they know the name, but isn't, in Washington insider, if you will, they like. And I that's what I'm hearing when I'm out in the various states.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I think that the media would love to see him go away. And I have an article right now that's about to come out in several sites, including Huffington Post, about the situation. The Republican Party would love to see him go away. I'm not sure the media wants him to go away because I think the media is in cahoots as a group with the Democrats. I think they're a progressive institution.
I agree, and I'll add to that and say, I don't think most in the Republican Party, and even those on the Democratic side, want to see him go away. I think the American public do really like what he's doing in terms of shaking things up and, getting other candidates to address issues where they've been silent or haven't had to address.
But I think the establishment would certainly like to see him go and can't wait to see him go. And I'm thinking about the rebuke that he received, I guess it was last week, from the chairman of the Republican Party. And I've been watching politics since the late 1970s. I've been interested in politics even since before I could even vote. And I have never in my entire life seen the chairman of either major party publicly, wag their finger at one of the candidates during primary season. It's something I think is unprecedented, or very close to unprecedented. And it's the kind of thing that when you look at Donald Trump, who's a man worth around $6 billion in spite of his recent troubles, could out of that money run a campaign as big as Mitt Romney without a single check from anybody else. And the last thing the GOP leads, the GOP thinks they're going to have problems with Trump on the head of the ticket. Imagine what kind of problems he'll have if he decides to run independently, which he will if he feels like he's being ostracized, single out, and being punished. I've never seen anything like the chairman did. Have you seen that before?
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I think the reason you're seeing, the RNC chairman come out is because of course, everything goes back to money, right? We're looking at donors who are used to donating to your establishment candidates such as Jeb Bush, newly establishment younger Marco Rubio, right? And so they're a little concerned with someone like Trump who can spend, he could spend $1 billion if he wanted to, right?
Yes.
And who knows? I think he was on a radio show several weeks ago and he was asked, would you spend $1 billion? And he said, sure, if I needed to, I would.
Yes.
And I think that scares those the RNC in terms of financially. And I think that's also at the same time why the American public like him, because they know he won't be bought by lobbyists, and that's something they're seeing way too much, especially in terms of their members they've elected into Congress, saying one thing but then voting a different way.
I wish capitalism motivated these guys. I don't think that's what motivated the chairman. I think they are worshiping at the altar of political correctness. And I think they are largely ignoring something that Trump has tapped into, which is not only the capacity to speak candidly about a huge problem, which immigration certainly is, but just to be able to speak candidly, period. I think all of us kind of feel like we are in preschool and the nannies are forcing us to act a certain way and talk a certain way. And my parents raised me to be polite, but I like to do it voluntarily, not through coercion. And I think that candor resonates with people.
I absolutely agree. I think America is tired of a lot of us feeling censored, not being able to say the truth because, maybe it'll hurt the small group of people who like to claim to be victims or, everyone's just scared of offending someone. But what Donald Trump has said is correct. He spoke of illegal immigration, not, legal immigrants. And that's something that you also see the mainstream media not I don't want to say they twist his words, but, when you just refer to immigration, there's two types, and so they want to paint him as someone who is against immigration in general, which that's not the case.
No, not at all. How do you see this playing out?
Like I said, I don't know if this is him at the top as of the time, the essence, with the media coverage and whatnot, but if he can prove that he's a viable candidate, which I think he has been doing, and I think it'll come down to the August 6th debate, then we could see him up at the top of the polls for quite a while.
Yeah, I think the only thing that could hurt Donald Trump is Donald Trump at this point.
I think you're right.
And he's so unpredictable. Like you did say, you did refer to the fact, would you be willing to spend $1 billion of your own money and run even independently? He said in another interview in LA Times, he said yes. And then within days after that, he said, no, I don't think I'll be running independently. And that shows me nothing except for the fact that he is unpredictable.
Right. And, I think that he's going to do what he believes is best in terms of his campaign. And I think he knows running independently wouldn't be that, because he does have, the support on the Republican side that's anti-establishment, which is a growing percentage, even we saw with the Tea Party emergence, right? And I'm even traveling to states where people don't even know who Marco Rubio is. They don't know who Ted Cruz is. They've never heard of these names. They don't know they're running for president. They don't follow politics whatsoever, and they don't tell me they identify with a party. And then all of a sudden they'll just volunteer, oh, well, I'm just going to vote for Donald Trump. And I'm like, oh, okay, why is that, And so I think it's going to be quite interesting. I think we might see him, definitely through Iowa. We'll see how he does. I actually am excited about being there this weekend to see how they receive him.
Yeah, you're going to go to Iowa?
Yes, I'll be there. I leave early tomorrow, and I'm staying through Sunday. So I know Ben Carson, Trump, Huckabee, as well as Walker will all be there, and I think Perry as well. So it'll be interesting to, investigate how the different voters are receiving each one.
It's been interesting to see how quickly Walker in particular has plummeted. And I'm a Walker fan. If I had to choose from the lot today, I probably would support Walker of the whole lot. But he sure has plummeted, and his candor about position changing and those type of things have been kind of difficult to watch.
Yeah, and I will say
he's been too open, if you will, about his posturing.
Yeah, but he is a politician. He has been in politics since the early 90s, and I think that was kind of evident in his presidential announcement speech. He didn't even mention immigration, didn't even say anything about securing the border. And, maybe that was an omission, an accident, because he is tough on immigration. But it could have also been planned because of everything going on right now in the media pertaining to Donald Trump, and not wanting any backlash there. So I don't know if that was a strategic decision not to address that, but it's quite interesting because he did before and after with Sean Hannity discuss his position on immigration. So it was, I thought that was kind of surprising.
It was telling. I think. And but he has a history of supporting a path to citizenship. Of course, all of them do. But he's now a little more, I guess you could say, obstacle interested in order to protect the interests of the nation. I wonder how much of that is politically motivated.
Right. And also, he did say he went down and met with Governor Abbott in Texas. And I do have to, I'll defend these governors of like a state like Wisconsin. I'm from Texas originally. And I think that you do have to go down there and see what's going on. It doesn't affect states like Wisconsin or Middle America as much as it does those that are on the border.
Yes.
So maybe that did change his mind. We shall see.
Yeah, time will only tell. Alex Swoyer, she is with Breitbart.com, BreitBart.com. Do you have another website that you want to drive people to?
Well, I have my personal website is just alexswoyer.com, but they can reach me on Breitbart's website as well and follow me on the campaign trail with all of your, hundreds of candidates.
Yeah, where are you on Twitter as well?
Yes, I am. I'm at A Swoyer. It's SWOYER.
Well, I look forward to being on the show with you later this month. Maybe we can get you back here on The Price of Business. Maybe we can get you to come in and kind of give us updates. You're going to be following the campaign. That's going to be your primary function through, I guess, November of next year?
Yes, that is the plan.
Well, maybe we can get you to come in and do regular updates for us. That'd be cool.
Of course. Yeah, I would love that.
All right, Alex. Thanks so much. By the way, do check out Alex Swoyer over there at Breitbart.com, BreitBart.com. If you don't know how that spells, I kind of say shame on you. It's kind of a big name out there these days. And when we come back, much more for you. I do want to remind you, best content here shows up over there at USAToReview.com. And you're listening to The Price of Business.